So I'm going to start us off with a brief background. So the iMap team is located in the New York Natural Heritage Program, and we are a partnership between the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry. Our mission is to facilitate conservation of New York's biodiversity by providing comprehensive information and scientific expertise on rare species and natural ecosystems to resource managers and other conservation partners. Some other work from NYNHP you might be familiar with are Trees for Tribs and the Conservation Guides. So NYNHP does a lot of work with rare native species and ecosystems in New York, but since invasive species pose such a huge threat to native biodiversity, one program within Heritage is the Invasive Species Database Program. And we are tasked with providing invasive species and mapping services in New York State, including spatial prioritization models, the Watercraft Inspection Steward Program app, and of course, iMapInvasives. So iMap is used by a network of several US states and one Canadian province. In New York State specifically, we use it as the centralized invasive species database to support PRISMs, which are partnerships for regional invasive species management, state agencies, and other partners working on invasive species issues. iMap is a GIS-based collaborative database that is used to map species distributions and track control efforts and results. And it also provides other services, including automatic email alerts for early detection and the iMap web map services for creating custom story maps, dashboards, and more. So what goes into this database? A lot comes from uploads of existing data from government agencies, managers, researchers, and museums. But another huge contribution to the database comes from you. So since Heritage doesn't have, the iMap team doesn't have the capacity to go out and survey the entire state ourselves, the database relies very heavily on community scientists and professionals for data. And because of that, there are multiple channels for you to enter data. One very important data entry tool for iMap is the classic iMap mobile app that you can find in the App Store or Google Play and download right onto your smartphone. This app is really valuable because it allows you to record point data for present and non-detected species, and you can do that in the field without connectivity. It's designed to be quick and easy and allow you to record the most important data on invasive species that you encounter in the field, and also to attach photos so that records can be confirmed by experts. However, a lot of our partners also need to record polygons or lines to represent search efforts, and sometimes they need to record treatments. And these more complex data can't be recorded using the classic app. Luckily, if you go online to the iMap website, you can enter point, line, and polygons for treatments as well as not detects and presences. That's all great, but the caveat is that you need internet connectivity. So for a lot of field sites, you would have to record data when you get back to the office. Sometimes that's fine, but sometimes that's not ideal. So to fill this gap between online and mobile app data entry, NYNHP uses the Collector app to create a tool for advanced data entry. So we call this iMap Mobile Advanced, and we refer to it as the workhorse of iMap because it allows you to enter point, line, and polygon records for presences, not detects, and treatments, and you can do all of this in the field without connectivity using either a smartphone or more commonly people use tablets. And with that, I welcome you to our first ever webinar on the iMap Advanced app. We're going to be going over a lot of information today, so feel free to type in questions into the chat box as we move along. And again, we'll be recording this so you can refer back to it later. Just to go over what we'll be going over today, I just gave us an introduction and background. Next, John Marino is going to be giving us an overview on using the app to create records. Then Colleen's going to talk to us about offline maps, which are a very important thing you need to be able to use this app offline. And then we're going to go back to John to learn about data management, and that includes material on AGOL or ArcGIS Online, and how the data gets into the iMap database. And at the end, we'll again be able to address the questions that you enter into the chat box throughout the presentation. And with that, I think I'll hand this over to John.
Perfect. Thanks, Mitch. So next slide, please. So I'm going to dive right into how you can get started using the iMap Mobile Advanced tool, and then go into a quick demonstration of how it's actually used on a tablet. So the very first step in getting access to the iMap Mobile Advanced tool is having an ArcGIS Online organizational account. This must be affiliated with what's called an organization on ArcGIS Online. It cannot just be a free public account, unfortunately. And so if you have such an account, feel free to send us an email to iMapInvasives@dec.ny.gov, and we will actually invite you into a group on ArcGIS Online, which you then simply have to accept the invitation, at which point you will have access to the mobile tool. Next, please. Then once you have access, you're ready to use the Esri Collector app. And to download this to your tablet, it's simply titled Collector for ArcGIS. We do not recommend using other apps that Esri has for Collector. On iOS, for instance, there's Collector Classic, and on Android, there's Collector Beta. We do not encourage these because of some compatibility issues with the standard use of Collector. But as long as you're downloading just the Collector for ArcGIS app, that should be the correct one. And so once you download the app and open it for the first time, you'll be prompted to sign in with that same ArcGIS Online account used to accept the invitation. Next slide, please. So some quick context for how the data sort of flows between the tablet and then ArcGIS Online. Essentially, as the data is created, it's actually first being uploaded into ArcGIS Online. From there, we have an automated crosswalk procedure we've developed in-house to essentially query the records that are in iMap Mobile Advanced and transform them directly into iMap records. So that's sort of the power behind this tool. Is you're creating data in the field. It's it does have to go to an intermediate step of ArcGIS Online, but from there it can go directly into iMap 3 without a bulk download and a bulk upload procedure. It just grabs the data, transforms it to an iMap record, and then uploads it. And so the way we know what records to upload is that we have a field in the data that is titled Ready to Upload to iMap 3. And that is the field that these scripts look for when identifying what records to upload. And it's also important to note that these records are entered as confirmed and they're tagged as partner data. So one thing to keep in mind is that any email alerts that other users of the iMap platform have created, these records may trigger those email alerts since they are considered partner data and confirmed records. Next, please. So a quick refresh on the data schema for iMap 3. It's sort of important to keep in mind. Our goal with this tool has essentially been to replicate the data schema of IMAP3 on a mobile tool. And so essentially each record starts with a foundation of a searched area. From there, each searched area can have presence records, not detected, and treatment records, all associated to the searched area. And it's important to keep in mind as well that for presence records, that can take the form of either a point, line, or polygon. And each of those point, line, or polygon features can have one or more associated species. So this becomes powerful because then you don't have to keep recreating, the same shapes over and over if you want to tag multiple species to any of those point, line, or polygon features. Next, for not detected records, it's important to keep in mind that you're indicating the species was not detected in the entire searched area. So that would be for when you're conducting a survey, looking for a specific species, and it was not detected anywhere in the entire area. That's when you would create a not detected record. And finally, you can have multiple treatment records associated with each searched area. Both they can be chemical, biocontrol, or physical. Next, please. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is shift over to the tablet, and what I'm going to do is just give a quick overview of some of the key functionality, and then actually go ahead and create a searched area with an associated presence polygon, as well as tagging species to that polygon I create. And so as I go through this, just keep in mind, you may want to keep the IMAP3 data schema in mind. It's maybe helpful in the workflow that I go through. And this is, I'm going to be sharing the screen from an Android tablet. And so pardon any technical difficulties we encounter as more and more people use WebEx. Hopefully the bandwidth is still okay and everything like that. And one final note is that I have disabled location services as I'm working remotely. So in case the GPS doesn't quite work as expected, that's probably why. So what I'm going to do now is share the screen from the tablet. Okay, so essentially this is an Android tablet, and I have the collector app sort of in the top right, just below that icon for the WebEx. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch the collector app. And on here, I just have two options, the iMap Mobile Advanced map, as well as another map. And if you load collector, you may see many additional maps because collector is just looking for any map that you have loaded into your ArcGIS Online account. So you may have more options than just the iMap Mobile Advanced in your collector app. So I'm going to go ahead and select the iMap Mobile Advanced map. And what will happen is I'll be brought into the full map extent for the tool. And what I'm going to do next actually is just to try to improve the loading speed, I'm going to change the base map to a basic map, and that should hopefully make sure that this continues working for everyone on the WebEx. And I'm going to change that to the light gray canvas. Hopefully that looks like it worked pretty well. So just to orient you to the app, basically this is the main map interface for iMap Mobile Advanced, and we're at a point where the main menu options are at the bottom toolbar. So, for example, I toggled the base map using the right-hand bottom right options menu. It appears to be three dots. And that's where we have the ability to Use the measure tool to measure distances on the map. Base map selector, which I just used to toggle this gray map, as well as a layers toggle if you want to toggle the visibility of any of the layers, which I don't recommend for this tool. So then following along the bottom, continuing to the left, we have what appears to be a book. That is the bookmarks section where you can save various map extents that you frequently use. To the left of that is a search function to search for various locations when you're in connectivity. To the left of that is the create record tool. And on the far left, we have the current location toggle to bring you to your current GPS location. What I'm going to do now is actually just zoom into the Albany area. We can see we already have a few test records in here. Most of the data in here are actual records, but many of the ones you're seeing, or this record is just a test record. And we can see as we zoom in, we gain more accuracy in the map. Right now it's just using a standard Esri base map, but Colleen will show in a little bit some of our custom base maps we're working on. So what I'm going to do now is actually just create a new record. So to do that, I'm going to use the create record tool on the bottom toolbar, second icon from the left, the plus icon. And at that point, I am now in the attributes for a new searched area record that I'm creating. So if you happen to be familiar with some of those searched area survey fields that we have available in IMAP 3, these should be very familiar. And essentially, most of these are sort of optional based on, the data that you're collecting. So I'm just going to enter a few of these as an example. Starting at the top with organization ID. This is the ID value in IMAP that corresponds to a particular organization, which you can find from the IMAP 3 organization URL. And so I happen to know that natural heritage is 741, so I'm going to type that in as the organization. Next, I'm going to use the button that says use current for the date as the survey we're conducting right now. As well as I'm going to select a site name for my searched area record. And this is basically going to be a park, so I'm going to select a landscape type. And that should be good for this record, but you can see there's a wide range of survey attributes that you can enter for the searched area. So now my attributes look good, so I'm now going to create the polygon for this searched area. The way I'm going to do that is up on the top menu bar. We now have 3 options: done, the center icon, which is the attributes, the page we're currently on, and then we have the map right in the center. So I'm going to select that center button in the top menu bar for the map. And you can see now we're returned to the map interface, at which point we have 2 options for creating the polygon. The first, and the method I'm going to use, is just by using my finger to tap on the map a quick polygon. And so if you have, a detailed base map and, it's very clear the area in which you're surveying, that could be a good option. However, most likely what you may want to use is the actual device GPS location to create the polygon. And so you have a few options to do so, and these are on the bottom menu bar. The first, starting on the left of the bottom menu bar, is stream. And what this allows you to do is actually walk the perimeter of the area you're surveying. And as long as the GPS accuracy is within 30 feet by default, it will record a polygon vertex every 5 seconds. And so that way you don't have to tap out on the map, you can just walk the perimeter and the polygon will be collected. Now, if you don't want that level of either detail, or you don't want it recording a point every 5 seconds, that center icon on the bottom menu bar, it looks like a person with a target icon. That will actually create a polygon vertex at your current location, just one. So you could select that and then walk 10 meters, select it again, and so on as you go. And so that's just another option for creating the polygon at your current location. So then on the bottom menu bar, just following along, there's an undo button. Selecting that will undo the last vertex you created. To the right of that will delete the entire polygon, the entire polygon feature if you want to start over. And then to the right of that is a vertex delete option. If you just want to delete the selected vertex, which is in red, you can use that option. And then finally, all the way on the bottom right is options for the stream process. So if you want to modify the accuracy of the points that are being recorded during the streaming process, here's where you do that. You can toggle the locational accuracy and also set a different stream interval for how often those vertices are being created. Okay, so at this point now I have a searched area with all of the attributes, and I have my searched area polygon. All I need to do now, use the top left button for done. And at this point, my searched area record should be created. And you can see that now it's selected, it's been created, and now it's selected in this blue outline. And so at this point, now I want to tag my presence polygon. To do so, I simply select that searched area down at the bottom. Now we're brought into just viewing the attributes we had just created for that record. And so at this point, we can now tag those additional records, presences, treatments, not detected, by scrolling to the bottom. And again, this is in the Collector app on Android. If you're on iOS, it may appear slightly different, but the functionality is all the same. And so we now have the ability to view any tagged records that happen to already exist. Let's say you're reviewing an old record, you can go back and see any of the other records that are already associated with the searched area. But in this case, what I want to do is actually just create a new presence polygon. And so the way I will do that is this, second section, it says presence polygons. I'll scroll to it being in view at the very top. What I want to do is select new under that section. And now I'm prompted for the attributes for the presence polygon overall. And first option it's prompting for is my observer ID. Again, this is from iMapInvasives online platform. We can help get people their iMap person ID, but I happen to know mine is 8933. And next, I'm going to use the observation date as, again, the current time button on the right. I can also select a time searched, or I can enter the time searched for this entire presence polygon. I'll just say 15 minutes. And so now I'm ready to create the polygon, again, using that center icon in the upper toolbar. And what I will do is actually create my presence polygon within the searched area. Again, if I had location services turned on, I could use any of the streaming services I mentioned earlier on the bottom toolbar. But that looks good, so now I'm going to just select done in the upper left. And now I have a presence polygon associated with the searched area, and I can check that by clicking view on presence polygons. I see we have one polygon, so I'll open that. There are the attributes I just entered. Now I'm ready to enter all of my tagged species for that particular polygon. So I'll go ahead and select new under present species. And now I'm selected with just attributes pertaining to a single present species record. So I'll go ahead and just enter fake species or go to testing species. And here now I'm presented with all of those presence fields that you're likely familiar with from IMAP 3. And we have the basic fields for the various taxonomic groups in terms of plants and insects. In Collector, we don't currently have the capability to have conditionally displayed fields. So as you're entering data for a particular species, you'd only enter the data relevant for that species. So each species, for instance, is a plant. So I would simply enter some of the plant attributes. And finally, one other thing to note is that you can actually enter photos using for presence records. The way you do that is at the very bottom, there's a paperclip icon. Simply select that. And I'm going to go into the gallery. And I happen to have a photo here. I'm going to select that. And click the check box at the very top. And now I have a photo associated with that record. So this is ready to go. So I'm just going to select done in the top left. Again, there's no polygon to create here because it's associating it with that presence polygon that I just created earlier. But I could go ahead and add additional species for that polygon if I wanted to as well. And so I'll just review quickly. I clicked view under present species, and now we see we have the species listed here. So the final thing I'll note here on the tablet is I'm going to go back all the way to the searched area record. And so I'm back here on the searched area. This is, again, where you can enter those additional data types for treatment records, for instance, chemical treatments, biocontrol, and physical or mechanical treatments, as well as not detected records, all being associated with this searched area. Okay, so I think that's about it for the quick overview on the tablet. The next section we want to cover is very important information for surveys that are being conducted in areas without connectivity. And the way we do that is through offline maps in Collector and ArcGIS. And so what I want to do now is turn it over to Colleen for an overview of the offline maps that we have available for Collector. And so I will now turn it over to Mitch with the PowerPoint.
Hi, everyone. This is Colleen. I was just marveling at how well both Mitchell and John gave a wonderful overview of NYNHP and the invasive species database, as well as using the Collector app. I'm going to go into how to use offline maps in the iMap Mobile Advanced tool. We piloted this tool about a year ago with a state partner who uses tablets, and with their tablets they have dedicated cellular data service. So they were quite successful using the tool and really didn't have a lot of problems with connectivity. But we realized that a lot of our other partners don't necessarily have the ability to have a data streaming service on their tablet or their device. So we were quite aware of the fact that we needed to really kind of it would be helpful for us to create offline base maps, especially at the prism-wide scale, so that it was easier for you to collect information when you don't have connectivity. So on our slide here, I have a quick little photo on the left side of what our Western New York prism-wide base map looks like, and it's extremely zoomed out, so there aren't a lot of features that you can see, but I will show you how they look when you zoom in a little bit. And it's important to note that although we're creating custom base maps which have the prism boundaries, county boundaries, town, city, and village, streets, water bodies, the protected area, properties, and topographical contours, Esri also has options within the collector app that you can use. We just thought that maybe we could help make the offline base maps a little bit more tailored to the needs of the prisms. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a little bit more of a zoomed in view of what one of our offline base maps look like. And again, it is scale dependent. So as you zoom in, more of the features become available or visible to you. So on the left, we have a fairly zoomed in version of a offline map where you can see the green squares are NYNHP properties, or those properties in the protected areas database. You can also see the contour lines. The bold brown is a 500-foot contour. The lighter gray are the 100-foot contours. We also have streets labeled and indicated on the maps, as well as water bodies. And you can also see that on the picture on the right-hand side, and the town and village boundaries are labeled in this yellow color, and again, we have water features. Next slide, please. Okay, so early this year, we started to actually work on creating these base maps with some of our partners. Currently, we have a base map created for Western New York, and we also have one for Lower Hudson. And we're also hopefully going to be processing the SLILO prism base map within the next couple of weeks. And we're completely open to creating additional maps upon request. Feel free to email us, and I will go over a little bit of the information that we'll need from you a little bit later in my portion of the presentation. So a really important question is, why will you need to use offline base maps? So just a quick understanding, the collector app uses the georeferencing information from the base map to accurately collect the GPS location of the device that you're using. That being said, the collector app will not work outside of connectivity without having that georeferenced offline base map downloaded to your device. So it's extremely important if you're going to an area that does not have consistent connectivity, or there are some gaps, it will need to have that offline map downloaded to the device to be able to allow you to consistently collect the data that you need to collect. Next slide, please. Next, I'm going to go through the steps to getting an offline base map loaded on your computer, and then adding it to your device, and then collecting information and syncing it to your ArcGIS Online account. The first step is, of course, adding the offline base map to your device. So this involves a little bit of work with your desktop computer and your device. And so you'll have to first request the link from us. And again, you can use our basic iMapInvasives at dec.ny.gov to contact us and see if we have a prism-wide base map available for you to use. And then you'll need to download the link that we provide to you. You'll have to download that to your computer. And this will come in the form of a zipped file, which will need to be extracted before it can be added to your mobile device. The next step is to connect your field tablet to your computer. Now, the pictures on the right-hand side of the screen show the top part is your standard Explorer page, Windows Explorer page on a computer, and I kind of highlighted what the file would look like that you'll get from us, and it's a TPK file, and that's the format that it will look like after it's extracted. You will need to move this file from your computer to the folder on your device that is labeled ArcGIS_collector. And I've highlighted this on red on the side where the photos are, just so that it kind of shows you which folder you need to add that file to. And this may take a few minutes. The file is fairly large. As you can see, this is one of our largest files. It's 4 million kilobytes, so it's a fairly large file. So it may take a few minutes for it to transfer to your device. Next slide, please. Once it has been transferred to your device, you should open up Collector and just make sure, number one, that you see the iMap Mobile Advanced map in all maps there listed. And as John had said, you may have a bunch of different maps listed there, but in order to use our tool and this offline map, you will need to make sure that that is there listed. And you can see that on the photo on the right, listed on my device, circled in red. And then within connectivity, you're going to need to download this map to your device. And that's circled in blue. Next slide, please. Okay. Once you hit that download button, it's something that's very important with the steps once you've moved from the computer interface to your phone or tablet, is that you should be on a stable wireless connection. And this should be done probably before going into the field, kind of like your field prep time. And it's just really important for things to go as smoothly as possible if the wireless connection is fairly stable. So after you've hit that download button from the previous slide, there will be a pop-up that comes up, and it will ask you to choose a base map. And the file that you just added to your device should be available for you to select in this pop-up. And as you can see on the photo, I highlighted in red there that, yes, indeed, that file is there. So you would select that file, and then the screen will transition to the image next to that, where it's asking you to choose your work area. And as you can see, the square is a little bit larger than the actual image shows there, which is fine. And it's actually probably better to do that, to have a little bit of a buffer around those edge areas. And then once you verify that this is what you want, you can hit download. If that's not the size that you want, let's say you only want a portion of the area that is provided in that offline map, you can actually change the size of that square and make it smaller to just the location that you're going to be working in. So that is changeable. And so once you're satisfied with that, you hit download again, and it will start to actually add that base map based on the extent that you just chose to your device. And this one that I have kind of demoed here actually took about 20 minutes to download onto my device. And I have a pretty stable wireless connection, so it can take some time. So just be patient. It gives you like a little bit of a bar to kind of see the progress. So you can kind of get a feel for how far you are into the download when you check on it. And then once everything is complete, once you notice that it's completed its download, then you can take Collector and use offline anywhere in that work area that you have added to your device. So you would be set to go. Now I'm going to show you some steps of how, once you've collected the data, how you need to add it to ArcGIS Online. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, syncing the data. I've collected it. Now what do? So once you've collected all your information and you've come back to your office or your home or however you choose to get into connectivity, you're going to again open up the Collector app on your device, and you should notice that it will say under the iMap Mobile Advanced tab there, it should say sync, and then it will have a number depending on the number of records you collected. So I magically went out and collected 3 records. I think it was a searched area, and I put a few different species in there. And it's indicating, as circled in red on the first photo there, that there's 3 records that need to be synced to ArcGIS Online. So what I do is I just select that button that says sync with the 3, and then I wait. And again, this is also dependent on how stable your wireless is and how many records you've collected will determine how long it takes to sync to the ArcGIS Online interface. I think it took about 10 minutes for the 3 records I chose, but my internet was working a little slow at that point, so I think it'd probably be a little quicker than that. And then once it's finished, the number will be missing from the sync button on the iMap Mobile Advanced app. But if you say I want to make sure, everything's there, it looks like it has, you can actually open up the map for iMap Mobile Advanced and just double check it, just for your own double check, I would say. So next slide, please. So step 5 is just double check, make sure that it actually got into the ArcGIS Online map. So you just want to make sure it got uploaded. And you can see on my little screenshot there that I found my record. I could see it on the map, and I could also see it in the table. So I know that it was successfully transferred from my field device to my ArcGIS Online, the iMap Mobile Advanced map. And John's going to go into a little bit more about this interface, the ArcGIS Online interface, and how that information is transferred into iMapInvasives. But I'm going to leave you here. And next slide, please. And so I thought it might be, if anyone had any questions, you can enter them in the chat box. And if you are interested in using a custom offline base map, you can contact us at our email, iMapInvasives@dec.gov, and then just include your name and your organization. And if there's any additional layers that you think would be helpful when you're out there collecting in the field, let us know, and maybe we can, find them for you, and, the area of interest that you're going to be surveying with. in.
Perfect. That was a perfect overview, Colleen, of all of the offline base map details. And so just to bring this full circle, to actually review the data in ArcGIS Online and then have the crosswalk go through, essentially the process to do so is sign into ArcGIS Online on a computer, and then you can head to the groups page for your ArcGIS Online account, where you should see the group we invited you, titled iMap Mobile Advanced, that provided you access to the field tool. Well, now you'll go into that group, and next slide. And what you want to do is select the data layer where the data was stored, or you could select the map. In this example, I'm just selecting the data layer. So really either of those two options should work. Next slide. Now you'll be back in the map interface. And so here I have two test records that I had created. Essentially, the top one was the one I sort of showed earlier, and the bottom one was one I created yesterday to sort of show the crosswalk. So next slide. Here you can review that record you created with all of the fields for the searched area, as well as see any of those related presence records, not detected in treatment records by selecting right on the record, scrolling to the bottom, and you should see in orange I have highlighted show related records. That will bring you a table of any of the related presences or not detected records you had created. And once you reviewed that and everything looks okay, then you would go ahead and, at that point, if you're comfortable with it being uploaded to iMap, then you would simply mark it as ready to upload for iMap 3. And the way you do that is by just, again, selecting the record, the searched area. In yellow, I have highlighted the box down at the bottom, an edit button. You would go ahead and select that. Next slide. And then you'll see ready to upload for iMap 3 as a field with two options, yes or no. Simply go ahead and say yes. And once you do that, then just click close, and that will save the record. Yep, go ahead, next. Then, after we run our crosswalk procedure, and generally during the field season, we're planning to do this weekly or as requested. Essentially, we can really run this at any time. You can always feel free to reach out. After we run the procedure, the created iMap searched area ID will then be populated back into your record. So you can see here, oh, this record was uploaded with the ID 1041151. And so next slide, bring it all together. Then now we have an iMap record that is directly from the collector data in ArcGIS Online being created as an iMap 3 record from the data, with all of the associated presence records, as I mentioned, treatments, or not detected records, all contained within the same record. And that, I believe, is it for that wrap up. So I think I might just pass it over to Mitchell for some final thoughts, and then we can answer some questions.
Sorry, I was muted. So thank you for sticking with us. We've gone over a lot today. I just wanted to also mention that we have other advanced apps as well as the iMap Mobile Advanced that we focused on today. So here we have a chart with all of our apps, including our basic app and our advanced app, the first two. And then we also have the Simple Aquatic Survey Pro app, the third in the row, which has some extra fields for rake tosses. And we also have a forest pest data collection tool, which includes some special fields for that pertain to forest pests and forest health. And so this is just a review of everything we went over today. We got through all of our topics, and now we are ready for questions. So you can enter immediate questions in the chat box. If there's anything you want to talk to us about later, you can also email us or visit our website. And before I start with the questions, I just want to mention that our topic next month is getting started with the Certified Trainers Network, and that is on April 29th. So again, the last Wednesday of next month, and that'll be from 1 to 2, and I'll be the main presenter for that. And you can register at our website, NYNHP-developed. One question I saw was to clarify the workflow. I think that's pertaining to when you're entering a record in the advanced mobile app. First, you have to enter the searched area. So John filled in some attributes on like some conditions at the site for the searched area, including he named the site Washington Park. And then he drew the polygon. Then he had to go back into that polygon and add in any presence, absence, or presence not detected or treatment data.
Yeah, and so just to add to that, the goal here is that this tool provides that full capability of having multiple species per presence area, multiple not detected species for a searched area polygon, and so hopefully it may seem a little complex at first, but the more you use it, hopefully it will be self-explanatory in terms of the value of why we have this configured with the multiple species and that type of thing, because otherwise you would probably be in a position to having to recreate polygons and attributes sort of again and again. And this is a way that you can really, tag all of those species, to one point or polygon or line, and have it, all be related to each other. So I have a few other questions I'll address too that I've written down. First one, Steve, it was a great question about iOS. The process Colleen showed was for Android primarily, but thankfully for iOS, it's a very, very similar process. The only real difference, I believe, is that the folder is titled collector instead of ArcGIS_collector. And so I actually provided a link in the chat with the full details from Esri about the process for iOS. It's very, very similar. Next question came up about if we have not already created a base map for the prism or the area of interest you're planning on working. It's absolutely, you can certainly use the built-in offline, map creator essentially in Collector. Basically what it would be is, if you recall in the screenshot Colleen showed where when you select download, there were two options. One was, Lower Hudson Prism base map or create new. You would just follow the create new procedure. But the thing is, especially if you're working in an area as large as a prism, that option probably will not work for you because you're capped at the size of the map you can create using that tool. So that's another reason why using our custom maps should be hugely helpful, because then you can actually sync that entire prism area and that type of thing. And the other thing is you also wouldn't have all of those custom layers that we have in our custom base map. And so another question I saw, I think from Ryan, was when you have the records ready to upload, yes, basically everything is driven by the searched area. So when you're ready to upload a record, including treatments, I think that was your question, Ryan, as long as those treatments are associated with the searched area that has been marked as ready to upload, then when the upload procedure goes through, those treatment records will get uploaded as well. And finally, I saw another question about viewing the records in table format. So, Mitchell, if you go back 2 slides, or actually 3 slides, please, if possible. Essentially, the long story short is that yes, you can view the records that you create in ArcGIS Online in a table format. And if you could go back 2 more slides, Mitch. Perfect. Yep. So basically, this is primarily the map view. You can load this data as in a tabular way just by going to the left side under Contents, hovering over the layer you're interested in, and a icon for the attribute table will pop up at that point. And that's the way you can view the data in a tabular format or filter it and do those common GIS tasks. And
John,
mhm.
Do you want to walk through just once more? I think for some people who are new to Collector, the piece where you interface with the computer, like there's 2 places where you interface with the computer, before you go out and after you're back. And I think if you could just review that one more time, maybe even Mitchell find one of the slides that kind of shows that, that might be helpful for some people judging on questions from the chat box.
Sure. I mean, the first point, I guess, is if you use the custom base maps, you only have to set up that process with the computer once. So yeah, where this slide is mentioning about the offline base map, that is a one-time process. So once that base map has been transferred, if you're using our custom base map, that only needs to be transferred once, and then it will be on the device for the duration, unless you actually go in and manually remove that base map. So that's a one-time process. The other component about triggering the record for upload, that would be when you're ready to for us to query those records and have them uploaded into iMap. So at that point, I think if you go forward 1 slide, please. Yeah, so the other component on the computer, which would be reviewing the data, marking it ready for upload, that would just be as when you'd like to actually go in and review the records and mark them ready for upload in the searched area, that is. So hopefully that helps, Meg.
Yes, thank you.
And another note, as I think Mitch mentioned earlier, this is our first overview into the iMap Mobile Advanced. If there is interest, prior to the field season, we may be available for more in-depth, sort of full-scale training. This is, designed to give everyone a thorough overview of capabilities and what it can do. But later, as we approach field season, we can certainly work with organizations individually, or perhaps another maybe smaller webinar tailored specifically to getting people ready for the field season with some more of the nitty gritty. So, Colleen, or yeah, Colleen or Mitch, are there any other questions you know of off the top of your head?
None that I can think of. I'm actually just going through and making sure everyone who put in a chat is answered. So that's the only thing I'm doing right now.
I just copied and pasted into the chat something from earlier.
Okay, so the question is, when you view species data in the searched area, notice each species is listed as its 4-digit species code, which is pertaining to the IMAP 3 species ID. Is there any way that could be changed to a species name? It would be much easier. So to the person who asked that question, I'd be curious to know where you're referencing that. It should, when you're viewing the data in ArcGIS Online, it should pull those domain values, which would be the full name rather than just the species ID. So perhaps follow up separately with us on that, because I'd be curious where that's happening. Um, it may be if you're referencing the data in like another GIS tool like ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. That may be where that's occurring. So you can follow up with us and we'll try to get that addressed. So Steve mentions it'd be great to have a workflow or a flow chart to show what app to use with what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah, that's definitely a great point, Steve. Perhaps we could modify our table that towards the end of this to fill in some of the gaps of what each tool's strengths are. This iMap Mobile Advanced is hopefully valuable for general purpose detailed survey data, whereas some of the other tools are for more specific purposes. So I think that, okay, one more question. If you're normally using ArcMap for work needs, can you get the same results without using ArcGIS Online? That's a good question. The short answer is for this purpose with iMap Mobile Advanced, you do need an ArcGIS Online account to be able to access the mobile tool. That being said, once you have access to collect the data, and you've marked it as ready to upload, I believe it's possible to reference the data in ArcMap rather than in the online interface, if that's what you're more comfortable with, to be able to make changes and mark the records as ready to upload. So the answer to that question is it depends on what you're trying to do, but you at least need the ArcGIS Online account to access the field data collection tool for iMap Mobile Advanced. Okay, so I think unless there are any more questions, I think this would be a great wrap up. And as Meg mentioned, and anyone else, feel free to send us an email at any time, and we'd be glad to talk with you and your organization directly about how you can best use the iMap Mobile Advanced and how we can help, and anything else we can do. So thank you so much to everyone for joining. Have a pleasant afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.